think 90% of other CIOs would agree with me more broadly. For AI to work well, it really boils down to the data. AI is obviously changing so fast, so rapidly. I think the way to think about CIOs as their journey can be looked at as in three phases.
When I think about humans and I think about AI adoption, I think about the balance between whether people are driven by fear or whether they're driven by optimism.
If you understand your product well, if you understand your customers well, if you're able to sort of contribute, I think it's still a myth to say that agents can operate in an autonomous manner.
What do you see as like the biggest opportunity for this project moving forward?
AI alone will not take your job. It's a human who is leaning into AI that might take your job.
Saket, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Liam. Looking forward to this conversation.
I've been doing research on you, preparing for this podcast. I was listening to a podcast you done in September of 2024, Me, Myself and I with MIT Slow Management Review. And one of the questions you were asked is, what do you wish AI could do that it currently can't do? And your answer was, I wish it could give me more peace and balance. Have you found that peace and balance yet?
I think it's a work in progress. AI is obviously changing so fast, so rapidly. There's a ton of value that we're all seeing and extracting, but it's still a work in progress, as I say. There's a lot more to happen. I think we're finding that humans and AI are collaborating better. Has it reached where we really start seeing the impact of it? I think there's a lot more to happen for us to get there.
Okay, and I'm excited to hear your perspective, especially on that idea of collaboration rather than automation. We'll jump into that later. I want to set a bit of context to who you are and what you do. So, obviously, you're the CIO of Asana. Can you kind of explain what that means?
Yeah. So, Asana, maybe I'll just start with what Asana is for folks who might not know as much about Asana. We're a work management platform, and the way we think about us is it's a platform wherein humans and AI collaborate to achieve outcomes, key priorities and outcomes for a company, right? So the workforce of today is a human plus AI workforce, and work happens either through tasks, projects, portfolios, company level goals, or through business processes, right, that go across multiple teams. So Asana is a platform wherein you manage and track all of the work, and AI is able to sort of create those workflows and provide goodness or better outcomes for the company. As a CIO, my role is has a few facets. One, I'm responsible for all internal technology, making sure that all our employees and individual functions are able to work at their productive best with less friction, greater efficiency. And the way we measure that work is how are we able to create greater delight? How are we able to simplify people's experiences? How are we able to increase revenue for the company and hopefully reduce cost for the company as well, leveraging technology? AI has been a huge charter of mine over the last couple of years as well. I am the executive sponsor for AI for internal Asana AI adoption, and there's a lot of that. There's a lot that we've accomplished over the last couple of years. There's still ways to go for us to say that we're very mature in this journey. So we can maybe talk a little bit about that through this conversation as well. And the third part is I spend a fair bit of time with customers as well. Um, as CIOs are the buyers for Asana on our customer side. So I have a unique vantage point wherein I engage with our customers as a practitioner. We have our own customer zero Asana on Asana environment wherein we dog food our product, and then talk to customers, engage with customers as a practitioner, and then hopefully through that bring in the voice of the CIO, voice of the IT, to influence any product direction, change, strategy, also our go to market strategy if need be. So that's sort of uh, the role that I play at Asana.
Something you've mentioned in other podcasts is that as a CIO in the past, you were kind of in the back room. And kind of with the advent of AI, you're becoming more front and center and more important and more working with customers. I'm curious, what did it mean to be a CIO in September of 2024 versus 2025? What's changed in the past year?
Yeah, I think it's again a continuation of the journey. I look at CIOs as maybe less technologists and more as business leaders, really. Sure, technology is a key facet of what we do and how we enable our organizations. But there are very few functions in any organization which have a unique vantage point wherein we can see what's happening across every function. And
Mm,
then it's incumbent on us. It's our responsibility to connect those dots better, right? So you're almost you have an opportunity as a CIO or an IT leader to act as a consultant, as an advisor to everyone across the company. And between 2024 to your question and 2025, I think it's just continue to do a better job at that. Now you have more tools in your toolkit, especially with AI, right? There's a lot of energy, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of chaos, and there's a lot of progress as well, right? There's someone who needs to shepherd that in an effective way in an organization, and I see CIOs being chartered to do that.
I want to tap into that one degree more. What do you think makes a really good CIO? What makes a bad CIO? And where do you think you rank in the global CIO rankings?
uh, I was at an event yesterday. No, day before yesterday, where there's someone who talked about this concept that really resonated for me as well. I think the way to think about CIOs as their journey can be looked at as in three phases, if you will, right? The basic, the ground level, entry level expected role of a CIO is that you've got to make sure that you're good at your core job, which is technology is available, technology is working great, and you're enabling your business partners, right? You're doing that well, that's the expectation, right? The next stage is if you understand your product well, if you understand your customers well, if you're able to sort of contribute towards product and customer, that's sort of the next stage in my opinion as a CIO, right? Wherein you're able to start acting as an advisor, not just being responsible for the technology, but being able to act as an advisor, consultant, a guide to your functional stakeholders and leaders. That's sort of the next stage. And what's important is that you can't do two without one. You really have to be good at your sort of core job. Only then you qualify to avail the opportunity that's at the second level. The third is sort of an extension of the second, wherein you perhaps have moved from the kids table to the adult table, where you are core to the company strategy and the business strategy. So much of the company and business strategy gets informed by technology and AI today that it just totally makes sense for CIOs to be core to that conversation, to be in that early conversation, as opposed to be in the fifth or the sixth conversation on a topic. By so you are creating that strategy as opposed to executing that strategy, right? And I think that sort of is the journey for any CIO, in my opinion. I'd like to believe I'm somewhere in that journey on the mid to higher end as opposed to the lower end. But I'd maybe have to poll my stakeholders and get a sense around that.
I want to let's tap into level two and then we'll tap into level three. Level two, you're describing this deep, intimate product knowledge. You obviously launched AI Studio back in October of 2024, and a couple of weeks ago now, you launched AI teammates in a public beta.
Yeah.
Specifically, AI teammates. Talk to me about what they are, how they operate, and what the vision is there.
Yeah, yeah. So AI teammates, from my vantage point, is quite game changing and compelling. And again, speaking as a practitioner here, um, the enterprise of today is an agentic enterprise. It's fair to say that even today, your workforce has a combination of humans and agents, and it's only going to become more agentic. The sprawl or the growth of agents in a workplace is only going to increase, right? And that collaboration between agents and humans is very important. I think it's still a myth to say that agents can operate in an autonomous manner. That collaboration between agents and humans is just extremely important. And where I think Asana is going with AI teammates is really about how can you have AI teammates operate with the right context. Because as a platform, if you've got all the work that's flowing across the enterprise, again, be it your tasks to projects to portfolios to company level goals, or across the board, any kind of workflows, be it campaign management or be it ticket or request intake workflows, right? You're capturing all of that work. So Asana has the right context. Now, if AI teammates has the right context, then it's able to give you better results, right? The second, I think, is that checkpoint, which is how can human be in the loop? How can human provide feedback to AI as part of this AI teammate so that AI teammates continue to get better? Truly think of this AI teammate as a co-worker of yours, right? That's keeping you in the loop, and you have an as a human, you can advise and give it feedback as well, and it gets better over time, right? And the third is control. For any platform, technology platform, to scale at an enterprise level, the right security checks. What can't happen is that an AI teammate has access to things that it should not have, right? So you should have controls around that. The right security guardrails have to be baked in from that standpoint as well. So AI teammates, in my opinion, is all about human and AI coming together for a lot of jobs that in the past humans would have done. Now you can have AI teammates do those jobs, um, and with the right context, with the right level of checkpoints and controls. And out of the gate, we launched 12 out of the box teammates, and it's also something that our users and our champions can go ahead and create their own teammates. It's very easy to kind of go build and experiment with. Yeah,
It's obvious that between yourself, Dan Rogers, and the leadership team, that you guys have tuned in very specifically what you're trying to achieve with this. The
yeah,
reason I know this is because I've been doing my research and I looked up a post from Dan that he posted yesterday on LinkedIn that read like this: everyone's racing to build autonomous agents, but the problem is they fail at 70% of basic tasks. This is because autonomy is the wrong goal. Agents must be able to collaborate and require three things to be effective: context about how your organization works, checkpoints that keep humans in a loop, and control over how they operate.
yeah, yeah. And I think we've been very thoughtful about this, right? Uh, we've been early thinkers. Asana has been an early thinker of really bringing in thought leadership in the space of AI as well. And we have a suite of AI offerings, in my opinion. One sort of that's just embedded core into our platform, wherein, again, because of all the context you have in the platform, you can ask it questions. For someone like me, it's very important that I can get to the core of the problems that I need to focus on. So I can go into Asana today and put to turn on my smart chat and ask, what are my top risks for this week? And it should be able to scan all of that and it should be able to tell me that, right? In the past, I would have had to set up meetings and a lot of conversations, bring in a bunch of people to force some of those conversations, right? Or for that matter, program managers who are required to create program status briefs and updates every week. Asana, the platform, can create all of that, and then the program manager can review it, and off it goes. So the level of efficiency gains that it's providing out of the box is amazing. Then comes in Asana AI Studio, which is sort of the low code, no code way of creating workflows across business processes. So be it request intake, right? and you can create a workflow around that. There are several out available in our smart gallery, and across all functions, right? And the third offering that we've come up with now is this AI teammates that I just talked about, which is that human and AI sort of collaboration. Almost think of it as a coworker of yours that you're training and making it better, so that again, getting towards your eventual goal with AI is how can you elevate humans to do the more thoughtful, creative, strategic things, and you can have AI take over the more voluminous, the more mundane, the more repetitive kind of jobs.
From what I understand, the basis of any of this working is that context. And I understand a little about it, but I was wondering if you could maybe explain for the audience like what the work graph model is that
Yeah,
Asana operates on and why this is important for both humans and agents.
yeah. Very impressed that you've done your research and you've caught on to that as well. Um, I think I believe the reason why our AI offerings are differentiated in the market are primarily because of the data model, this work graph data model. And it's not something that we just came up with now. That is the foundation on which Asana was started many years back. Uh, and it really is, and internally we call it the pyramid of clarity, right? Really, what it does is it is a work graph that connects the lowest unit of work, which is a task, to a project, to a portfolio, to the company level goals, and also across. So now you're through this work graph data model, you have clarity of who is responsible or who is accountable for what, by when, why, and how. And these are very important questions. It flows off rather easily when you say it, but if you sort of pause and reflect on this, for any organization, for any kind of work, for them to do well, execution needs to be top notch, right? Whether it's in function execution, whether it's across the board. And if you are able to have clarity around who's responsible for what, by when, how, and why, and you're able to scale that, your collective outcomes as a company are going to be better, right? And I think that is this work graph data model against which all of our AI is built on, which to my earlier point, I think makes us differentiated. Our outcomes from AI are better than what we think that others are able to provide.
I mean, I can only speak from my experience running a small startup. We're between 10 and 15 people right now. The thing that I struggle with most and everyone in the team struggles with most is that kind of stakeholder management, that project management, who's responsible for what, how do they connect each other, and it's almost it seems impossible to do that just out of the power of my own mind is that I need an external system for that. So you
Yeah.
might have convinced me to switch on to Asana at this point because I think I've used every other kind of work management system out there, and nothing really speaks to me because it still requires so much manual input for myself.
Yeah.
Um,
And again, Liam, as a practitioner, I will say this, right? Anytime you're trying to drive transformation or change, it's a combination of people, process, technology. Technology can do its part, but you've got to make sure that you're thinking through the process. You want to make sure that people are educated, understand, and are ready for the change. And when you bring it all together, is when true transformation eventually happens.
Yeah, and it's something I really want to talk about. I'm going to jump onto that in a second. That kind of the people aspect, something we focus on a lot. We've worked with the likes of SHRM and co-producing their modules and stuff as well. So it's always a big focus of ours. I want to clarify some things about these AI teammates before we do. So I want to speak about how you see that collaboration looking. You talk about these checkpoints and humans in a loop. Like, what does that look like in a practical sense? What oversight is needed currently, and do you kind of see that changing over time?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me maybe give you an example, a couple of examples that might sort of bring uh, more clarity to this, right? Um, One of the teammates that we've launched out of the box, it's an IT ticketing specialist, right? Now, in the past, someone would have run into an issue, they would have submitted a ticket, and a human would have engaged and hopefully resolved, or maybe have escalated to the more advanced sort of agents, human agents, right? Now with this, we have a teammate that is looking out for such requests. It's not a human, it's an AI teammate, and it's trying to find patterns from what has come in earlier. And if it finds that this is something that we've seen earlier, it's able to make recommendations and resolve that, or it's able to triage it and keep guiding us on our SLAs and stuff. So the amount of work that was falling on humans in the past is much lesser, right? This is just one example. And as a requester who was experiencing a pain, now you don't have to necessarily have this back and forth and the delays that would have come through uh, our teams being maybe swarmed with a bunch of tickets. Now you can get better quality service as well. So it's a win-win from that standpoint, right? um, Similarly, there's another one that we've rolled out for marketing, which we call campaign strategist, right? Its job is to draft campaign briefs, track its sort of process of distribution and drafting, variations and back and forth with humans. It can do all of that. Now, in the past, when there was nothing like this, it was again a campaign person who would have had to kind of navigate that entirety of that process. And there's so much of that heavy lifting that can be lifted, taken over by this teammate, that humans are able to do the more meaningful stuff then.
Talk to me more about my experience there. Am I communicating through natural language? Am I clicking buttons on
Yes.
a computer? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, you're engaging through natural language. It's like a thread of conversation wherein as a human you can comment, and AI teammates is also leaving its thread of why it's doing what it's doing. So it's providing that explainability around. So another sort of challenge that we've run into in other places with AI is that it can hallucinate with confidence, and it can operate in a black box. So there's no real way for you to know what's the thinking behind that. And in this case, the AI teammates is leaving a trail of logic of why it's done what it's done, right? And as a human, you have access to that. You're a collaborator in that so-called task, and then you can provide your inputs and you can guide it. Hey, I'd want you to go look at this as well, so it can learn along that sort of thread as well.
I wonder if you can be really candid with me for a second. Probably not good for the PR team, but where do you think AI teammates currently underperform? And what do you see as like the biggest opportunity for this project moving forward?
I think the tech is ready, in my opinion. Again, speaking
Yeah.
as a practitioner, I think the tech is ready. It's more about um, us as people. One, us as people who are able to use it appropriately. Second, I will say, and I think 90% of other CIOs would agree with me more broadly, for AI to work well, it really boils down to the data.
Hmm.
Now, if your platform, you're not using it in a way where you're capturing data appropriately, then AI will never be able to give you better results. I think what Asana is providing you is the right guardrails with this work graph data model, that you can get the data in the right way. But at the end of the day, humans own what data they're providing into the platform, right? So I think it's really that. I feel that it's a very low friction way of engaging with AI, especially with this AI teammates. And in some ways, if I were not an expert, I probably, and if the names or the avatars were not as creative, I would probably not be able to tell the difference that it's an AI teammates at work or if it's another human. Sure, I can go in and look at the profile of the AI teammate and say that it's an AI teammate. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, we've got teammates with pretty fancy names internally at Asana, um, because they're giving them a persona and a personality as well.
Yeah, you got to give them more basic names like John Doe's
Yeah,
and John
possibly.
Green's, and everyone won't be able to tell the difference at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I've obviously been running the newsletter for 2.5 years, so we've saw the evolution of AI avatars. And I remember when they first came out, you could really tell the difference. Like the speech wasn't lining up, the facial
yeah,
expressions weren't there, but the technology's getting better and better. One of the podcasts I did 3 4 months ago. Was with Quinn Favret of Tavis, who's also based in San Francisco,
Hmm.
and they focus very specifically on AI avatars, and they have specifically fine-tuned models to understand tone, to understand facial recognition, body language. So it's only going to serve to get better, and I think will become very indistinguishable pretty soon.
Oh wow! I mean, the innovation happening in this space is mind blowing. Um, I yeah, there are startups out there wherein you can uh, you can have an avatar, you can give it the text, and it can create a video for you. And yes, in the past, to your point, you could tell the difference that it's perhaps not a human. Now I think it's going to be very hard. It is already very hard to tell whether it's a human or an AI avatar. Or I've seen use cases wherein, like for us, when we launch a bunch of technology process changes, change management is a big thing for us, right? We got to drive that. In the past, it would take a lot to write the change that's going to happen, and having people sort of getting used to that change is a big lift. Now there are offerings out there wherein you can just do your screen navigation, and it can create professional grade videos for you, and your change management needs are met a lot more easily, and there's just a ton more innovation happening.
Let's tap into the human aspect, change management, and what you mentioned with level three of like driving real AI transformation internally. One article I found on you was an interview between you and Anna Binder, who is your chief people officer, from what I understand.
Yeah,
I'd like to talk more about the connection between IT and HR when it comes to driving AI transformation. So, for me, we've worked with the likes of Sherm. We co-produce their AI courses. We deliver that, and kind of delivering that live training. I've seen how pivotal the HR department is in terms of taking the lead on AI adoption. I've also seen that you've been very vocal on that and the important link between IT and HR.
yeah,
Talk to me. I want you to kind of take me back to the start. Like, what connected you and Anna in the first place, and what did those initial conversations look like
yeah,
when you're talking about AI
yeah.
transformation?
No, I think that's a great question, and I think what has happened is AI has provided another opportunity for the CIO and the CHRO to engage a lot more deeply. And it's in fact it was Jensen Huang uh, who, in one of his keynotes, and I'm paraphrasing, he was saying that CIOs are the CHROs of the future in some way, right? Because so much of employee experience is now digital and AI, right? So that partnership between the CHRO and the CIO is extremely important. In our case, um, very early on, we decided that we wanted to be fairly clear to our employees that we are going to be AI first. What we meant with that was that we are going to invest in our people and their skills for AI adeptness. We're going to provide people the right tools so that they can go and experiment and they can learn along the way. And most importantly, we wanted our people to reach a stage wherein, as they are navigating their work, AI is not something that's an afterthought for them, but AI is something that's sort of the first thing that they're thinking of. Can I leverage AI for this, right?
Mm.
I'll say that we're somewhere along in that journey. I won't say that we've completed that journey, but that means is that it's not just a technology transformation, it's a much larger workforce transformation where you need to understand where your people are. You can't necessarily force them. Now, there are companies that have actually forced or have come up with policies and briefs where they're very direct about it. And our approach was more encouragement and more rewarding and showing the positive side of all of this to our workforce. And so which meant that the HR leader and the IT leader had to collaborate in understanding where our people are and then creating programs of enablement, right? And that's where, and I see that a lot more of that work needs to continue happening in the future as well.
Yeah, I'd completely agree. Kind of part of the backbone of our business is that we get contracted out to go and train organizations and train their staff.
Yeah.
And we often find that it's not access to information, it's that people just want to feel comfortable and feel as if they're not going to be left behind and feel
Yeah.
supported. They just want someone to hold their hand through the process to get them from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to in our experience.
Yeah. One of the things that we did early on is we did a survey, a bunch of questions around AI. And through that, we were able to get a sense of where is our workforce, what percentage of our workforce, it was an anonymized survey, but what percentage of our workforce are naysayers, or what percentage of our workforce are champions and advocates, what percentage of our workforce is excited but stuck, right?
Mm.
And then we, through that, we created a bunch of enablement learning programs. We call it GrowthCon, wherein we bring in people and create sort of programs for them for
Can
for
I want to stop there. I want to jump into these very specifically. That
Okay.
first survey, when you're measuring the results and getting this
Yeah.
qualitative feedback, what were people thinking before you put any enablement programs in?
um, I think we, being a technology first company, we weren't very surprised that we didn't have a large segment of naysayers. We had a large section of people who were excited yet stuck. They didn't know how to kind of navigate that, and a very small sliver of people who were mostly in our R&D organization. These were people who were sort of already the champions, who were exploring things and trying out things as well. But I think the point being, it's important that I'd recommend even now, wherever people are, you should continue to measure that and then accordingly tailor and create your programs. Because when we did that the first time and then we did that the second time, we saw a meaningful change. And this we did over the year. So at the start of the year and towards the end of the year. And we learned different things, by the way, through that survey. The second survey, we heard that people have moved further along on that maturity, but now people are have different needs. People are now asking us, okay, we get it, and we feel great about wanting to experience AI. Show us how, right?
Mm.
Don't just give us horizontal tools, but just we want to experiment at the edge. We want to federate out and experiment. But there's also a need for organizations like mine to identify those complex, hairy, more cross functional use cases and scale them for the organization so that not everyone's job is to go solve their problems through AI. Some just want to experience AI. There are organizations, functions like mine, that need to build solutions for them. And so then we started down this journey of identifying which are the functions wherein we can do more with AI, right? So obviously, software engineering development was an area where everyone's sort of seeing AI goodness come through. And so we created some energy around that. Similarly, around customer support, marketing, SDR, go to market space, right? So that's how we've sort of shifted because we continue to learn from our people, combine that with what we're seeing from happening in the market and outside. And that's how we continue to tailor this program. And that's again where what's also very important, something that I think we've done right, we've done a bottoms up motion around this,
Mm.
right? The innovation to happen, but we've also been very direct from the top. Because while I own the charter for AI transformation across the company, it's very important that each one of the functional leaders know what's their role. They have a very important role at being enablers for their functions and almost demanding that this is what they want to progress towards. So I think that that balance between the bottoms and the tops down is extremely important. And I think that's where we found success.
Yeah, and it's evident that it's real. When I kind of read off that LinkedIn quote, it matched exactly what you were talking about when we were talking about like why this is effective for you guys. It's clear that you're very true to what the strategy is, and you're very clear on what it is. Um, I want to speak more about the cultural aspect of this. You mentioned different programs and enablements. Can you get specific with me in terms of what they are? Do you have AI champions? Do you have organizations? Do you have show and tells? Like, what does that look like in a practical sense?
It's a combination. It's all of that in some ways. We do have show and tells. We have an AI council in place today, which is a representation from each of our functions, and These are people who we look as people who are advocates and enablers for those functions. So one, they can bring in the voice of that function, and they can also then help drive change in those functions, right? And so we
Mm.
have this AI council which meets bi-weekly, talks about what are their learnings, and when we have to drive change into those functions across the company, we leverage our AI council for that as well. um, and we make sure that it's a priority that the company is seeing. So in our all hands, every now and then, we have some good use cases, that some wins that people have experienced. We have them come in and talk about that. In our offices, we've got our monitors wherein we talk about some of those wins as well, right? So people see a lot of this conversation. There are updates that we send out from me or my teams about, hey, these are the changes that are coming through as well. So there's a lot of conversation. The one thing that really went sort of viral for us as well was we had a Slack channel that Dustin had created when Dustin was the CEO, and it became a safe space for people to just um, talk about AI. So if anyone was had any experience, good or bad, they would share there, and then people would comment on that, right? Or if someone saw something out there that felt appealing, they would talk about that. If someone was stuck, they would talk about that, and that became sort of again a low friction way of getting greater adoption and energy around this AI.
I mean, that's what we've seen in terms of adoption as well. As what's most effective is not having definitive results that you expect as a result of the adoption, but just encouraging engagement at a base level.
Yeah.
Another conversation I had was with Gordon Wintrob, who owns or is the CEO of Newfront,
Hmm.
also based in SF, and he said that I think it was 2 weeks or every month, they do a show and tell where it doesn't really matter what you've made with AI. You just come and show anything you've made with AI. It could be your
Yeah.
kid's calendar, it could be a macro counter for you at the gym. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's just playing with it almost.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that I do advise, and I've gotten this advice myself from some CIOs as well, is how do you balance innovation with impact? Um,
Mm.
what can't happen is that you stifle innovation by asking everyone around ROI and outcomes very early on, because in some ways you want to let those thousand flowers bloom, and yet you want to balance that with outcomes that you might want to tap into and care for, right? And so that balance is very important. So there are cases wherein there's a lot of experimentation happening which is teaching us something. It's not directly showing impact, but all of those experiences, whether we fail through those or not, are teaching us something. And yet there are some use cases wherein we have higher confidence that these are things that can truly drive impact. Again, coding assistance, customer support, chatbots, and stuff. Those are the ones wherein we're trying to really drive and measure the outcomes and impact that we're also getting through that.
Yeah. Talk to me more about a different balance. So, when I think about humans and I think about AI adoption, I think about the balance between whether people are driven by fear or whether they're driven by optimism.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I've seen in one of your kind of surveys that like you achieved 61% more enthusiasm around AI through these different measures you put. That also means that 39% are still kind of scared and afraid of it. How do you think about that balance?
yeah, yeah. I think one has to be very real and thoughtful about this. Um, there are people who are going to be fearful of everything that's happening with AI. Um, while broadly we believe that AI should augment humans, there is certainly enough disruption happening that there are some jobs that over time will be more prone to be disrupted than others, right? And every job will change to some extent, right? And my guidance at this point in time really is, there's only, whether it's going to get disrupted or not, there's only one thing that we can do, which is to come along on this journey, right? You're better off when you are more AI leaning in as opposed to pushing it away. Um, because new opportunities might emerge if you're sort of leaning in. There was, I think it was Satya or Jensen who'd mentioned again this quote of AI alone will not take your job. It's a human
Yeah.
who is leaning into AI that might take your job. And I do think that is very, very relevant. So my guidance is yes, AI can disrupt some jobs, more or less, depending on the kind of job. But the only way out for us, or the only way to approach this for humans, for our workforce, is to lean in and learn and create the future in some ways, right? So if you lean in and you are able to sort of find a way to maximize the impact of your job through AI, you might have discovered something that others haven't, and you can then be the torchbearer for that as well. So yeah, I mean that's the only way I want to think about this, perhaps.
I think it's a concept that I can abide by. I think it's quite stoic in its approach. It's like, this is happening. You kind of got to get on board and make the most of it or not. But do you believe that there's maybe a small percentage of humans that will just never be able to kind of wrap their head around that? Like, or do you
Possibly.
think everyone's coachable and everyone's trainable?
I think it's also generational as well, right? I feel the workforce, that the college kids who are entering the workforce now, right? They are able to adapt to this change way better, way faster
Mm.
than perhaps someone in my generation. Again, Shopify. I was listening to this podcast. There was a podcast by the CTO of Shopify, who was saying that Shopify is bringing in a ton more interns, as compared to what they were bringing in earlier. And the reason behind that is this is the workforce that is more AI ready, and they want them to go amplify and drive this change when others are going to see other interns and work co-workers leaning in and doing so much more. It might have an effect and impact on others as well. Yeah, so I don't want to say that everyone will necessarily be able to come on this journey, but it's important, and a generational change big enough wherein we can't just put our head in the sand and feel that this wave will come and go and we will still be relevant. Um, so so the better way to think about this is, if we can do this easily or hard, or if it's hard for us, we still need to go do it. It might come easy to some, it might be hard for some, but everyone needs to, I think about AI and start leveraging it in safe, small ways. It could be that you start experiencing AI in your personal lives, and you are already, right? Even today, when you're
Mm.
doing a Google search for something, you see AI results from that, right? You might be using ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude. For I do that for my personal vacation planning, right? Those are ways those are safe, small ways that you can start leaning and experiencing, and then you'll start seeing that over time it becomes more sort of second nature to you, as opposed to it being a lofty thing that you need to overcome.
I want to jump out of your tacit knowledge and more into your opinions to finish off, and just like what you think is going to happen.
Mhm.
This idea of job displacement is something that comes up time and time again. And when people ask CEOs, CTOs, founders about what will happen with the job displacement from AI, you always get a lot of kind of vague, ambiguous answers. People reference the Industrial Revolution, how that changed things, and people were in entirely new jobs. Do you have any opinion on what you imagine the future of work looking like, or how industries will change, or where jobs will be displaced to? Maybe you don't have an answer, but I am curious.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a direct answer, but my answer is certainly I'm in the camp that yes, there have been enough revolutions and changes that have come through over centuries, and the human spirit is uh, big enough, vibrant enough to adapt to all of those and come out on the better side of it. Um, I do believe our jobs, everyone's job will change to some extent, some more than others. Um, and I still feel I don't see a dystopian future for humans. I do see a flourishing future for humans wherein we will still find valuable things to do. We might not be doing the same things, but our society at large should be thriving more because of AI. That's sort of the camp that I'm in.
I want to tap into that with three questions around just you as an individual to finish
Mhm.
off. I think a lot of AI podcasts is it jumps very deep into the technology itself, and we forget that it's humans behind it that are actually operating it. So
Yeah.
I want to just ask some questions about you as an individual. If you weren't involved in tech whatsoever, you weren't involved in the tech industry whatsoever, what else would you be doing? And do you reckon there'd be anything that remains consistent in what you're doing now versus what you'd be doing outside of tech?
Yeah, I think the vague answer to start with is going to be that I like solving problems. This is something that I learned early on in my life, that I like solving problems, and I do feel that as CIOs, our jobs are not easy. Well, no jobs is easy, but because of how cross-functional our jobs are, um, driving change is hard, and so I enjoy solving problems. And at some point, I'm earlier on in my career, I felt that I wanted to be in the medicine field, um, healthcare in some capacity, and there's just so much innovation happening, has been happening in that space as well. I think that would have been a great place to be in as well. And AI can be so hugely valuable in the healthcare space as well.
Yeah, I think you mentioned on another podcast that your parents wanted you to be a doctor. You thought about being a doctor at some point, right?
Yeah, you've done your research well. And I, yeah, for the longest time, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. And now when I look back and I ask myself, I'm like, I wasn't sure. I think it was my idea. Perhaps it was not my idea.
All right, I've got two final questions. In relation to work, what is an innate personality trait of yours that you think makes you really effective at work, and what's an innate personality trait of yours that you would change and makes you not so good at your job?
Okay. Um, I think the quality that I think is important for me or for any leader is um, being able to bring clarity to your team, being able to break down the big vision into more crystallized, concrete um, things that your team can sort of relate to, and show them the connection between their work and uh, the bigger goal. Um, and then be the champion of your people. Be the champion of your people, that you're able to sort of uh, show them what good looks like. You're able to support them. You're able to give them the opportunities wherein they challenge themselves and they surprise themselves and they surprise you, right? um, the one of the things that I think I should do more of and continue to sort of do better at is um, celebrating more. Uh, I'd heard a work colleague say this to me once, that sometimes you need to stop and smell the roses. There's so much of change that we drive, that I find that there are times wherein I acknowledge the goodness of my teams, and then what's next. And I think we can do a better job for ourselves and for our teams, their work to be recognized and admired, um, because I have such deep gratitude and appreciation for the work that my team does. I think I can do a better job at championing all the work that they do.
It's a great answer. I want to finish off with one question that I ask every single one of my guests. You can take the context of this however you want. I would encourage you to take 10 seconds before responding and just take it however you want. Why do you do what you do?
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I need 10 seconds for this. Um, as I mentioned earlier, it's a hard job, but it's a very important job and a very fulfilling job. I think we can be accelerants, at least as CIOs and IT leaders and IT organizations, we can be accelerants of helping companies achieve what their north star, what their goal is. Um, and it's not always that we succeed, but when we succeed, um, our companies are better off, our people are better off. I think that's the way, that's what keeps me going. And back to my earlier point of problem solving, these are hard problems to solve, right? And especially as you scale as a company, right? um, there's a lot of sense of fulfillment that comes when you're able to solve these hard problems.
So okay, I want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate you taking 45 with me today to cover everything. It was awesome.
I've
Thank you
enjoyed
very
this
much.
conversation, and very impressed with all the research that you do before your podcast. And good luck to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.